The Kansas City Chiefs had a light practice today in St. Joe, and on top of that, the weather is awful because it has been all calendar year, and there's rain, and everyone had to go home, and etc. So there's only a few notes from today's practice, but I figured there was a couple things that we could talk about in order to get ahead maybe of some of next week's narrative. Tomorrow, the Kansas City Chiefs will be off. I will still be here with two videos. There's a video dropping later tonight about basically the next leg of the dynasty and what the Chiefs have going forward. But for today's practice, day 8 of training camp, we get this from Pete not practicing for the Chiefs on Wednesday, per my view. Wide receivers Brown, Moore, and Worthy. Then you have tight end Jake Brenningstool, offensive lineman Taylor, linebacker Jeffrey Bassa, Darius Rush, Bush, Scott, and Fulton from the defensive backs. So I don't think any of us thought that we were going to see Hollywood Brown or Xavier Worthy today anyway because they got a little bit banged up yesterday. Don't push your luck there. Sky Moore, I don't know exactly what the injury is there. I think that there's a very low possibility that he makes the roster anyway. Yesterday, one of the things that I had missed out on my coverage was that Robert Tonyan had a couple of goal line snags from Patrick Mahomes, a couple impressive touchdowns in the red zone area. So maybe Jake Brenningstool really is heading for the practice squad for the Kansas City Chiefs, or, as many have speculated, he's going to be the guy who gets injured and stays with the team that way. Juwan Taylor, I think after 3 days of padded practices, you probably were going to see him take a step back anyway because he has had some trouble being on the field thus far this preseason. Jeffrey Bassa, that is difficult to see. And then I don't think there's any real surprises with the defensive backs there. Matt Derrick chimes in. Juwan Taylor is out today, so Jalen Moore is handling right tackle. Mike Caliendo rotated in a few snaps at left guard. Hunter Nourzad at center. That's the starters plus Moore, Caliendo, and Nourzad are your top 8. And this makes a lot of sense, but I am not sold on this being the top 8 for long. Obviously, there's still time in training camp and the preseason games for things to change, but also we're seeing a lot of versatility from Jalen Moore, a lot of willingness to move around from Jalen Moore. That might be in preparation for the Kansas City Chiefs to try to open up a roster spot for a wide receiver. It might be because they are trying to get their offense and defense back at 25. Last year, they took 26 offensive players and 24 defensive players into the season. So being able to carry 9 offensive linemen instead of 10 would really help them out. Having versatility at tackle and guard puts Moore very high on the list for this team. Caliendo, I am maintaining, and we're going to see a little bit why in a moment, that Caliendo might be one of these offensive linemen that has a lot of versatility, has done a lot for the team, but might not stick on the roster this year. Nourzad, I think, still has a lot of upside as a young player. He can play center and guard. I think that he has more upside at center because the physical requirements are lesser and he's a bigger guy. So he might have plus potential at center. I don't know about guard. I just haven't seen enough from him in the NFL yet. But we're going to get into a little bit of that now. So I don't often bring up the RAS scores for Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, but we're going to get into them. And this is going to tell us why the RAS is so tempting to talk about. So you have Creed Humphrey, who has proven himself to be an elite center in the NFL. I mean, I don't think any of us would argue that. And you have him here with a perfect RAS score of 10. So 6'4", scores 8.4 for a center. If you get to 6'5" and 6'6", it's harder to get down in that position and snap the ball. 302 scores just a 6.37. So not an elite weight for Creed Humphrey, but he is he's an athlete. He was a wrestler, so He has that physicality to him. 29 reps on the bench press, scores 8.09. A 33-inch vertical leap is a 9.63. A broad jump of 9 foot 4 inches, scores 9.56. A 5.11 40-yard dash and a 1.71 10-yard split are both elite numbers. Both are functional for a center. You got to have a guy who can pull, and Creed Humphrey has been down the field several times on tape. You see him downfield blocking still. And then you have the agility grades, which shouldn't surprise you if you've seen him move. 4.49 on the short shuttle, which scores an 9.03, and a 3-cone drill of 7.5, which scores an 8.63. So a perfect 10 at RAS for Creed Humphrey. Then you have Trey Smith. Now, the reason that I said that the RAS is so tempting to talk about with players is that Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are probably your two best offensive linemen, and they have your two best scores. 9.9 for Trey Smith at 6'5". He scores a 9.25, 321 pounds, 32 reps on the bench press. That is an impressive number. Scores 9.19, a 31-inch vertical leap, scores 9.05. So there are some offensive guards out there that can really get in the air. 9'4" broad jump, scores 9.54. You see that same 9'4" broad jump score 9.56 among centers. Just to foreshadow that there is a difference between the scores for a center and a guard. These change a little bit by year because of different players coming out, but these were two players in the same draft class at different positions, and their exact same score is grading out differently based on moving over 3 feet on the offensive line. Then Trey had a 5.11 40-yard dash, which scored an 8.84. That 5.11 40-yard dash scored an 8.26 for centers. So you see a little bit of a faster player at center than guard, but a little bit of a smaller and perhaps less explosive player at center than guard. 10-yard split of 1.75 scores a 9.13. The short shuttle of 4.82, only a 4.91 for Trey Smith. If he had gotten that up, he probably would have scored a perfect 10 as well. And a 3-cone drill of 7.45 scores a 9.59. Now, those are 33 3/4 inch arms for Trey Smith as well. That's a very good number. That's why he was able to do so well at tackle while he was in college. Now, Kingsley Suamataia did not do the agility scores. Scored a 9.35 at an offensive tackle position. 10 and 6/8 inch hands, 34 and 1/4 inch arms, 6'4.5". We're going to get into that a little bit later, but that only scores a 2.49 for offensive tackles. A 326-pound weight, 31 reps on the bench press. You're looking at a guy who is a very good athlete. 28-inch vert, but you're looking at a 28-inch vert with a 326-pound body. 9'2" broad jump, scores 8.65. A 5.04 40-yard dash, scores a 9.07. That is faster than the 5.11 by both Trey and Creed. So, it's worth noting that 6'4.5" height does score a 7.68 for offensive guard, which would have moved Kingsley's size grade to elite for offensive guard. Also worth noting that a 28-inch vertical leap scores around 6.33. The number that I was able to find was a few years older, so it might be a little bit lower than 6.33 now, but that would put his explosion composite closer to the elite category as well. So you're looking at two players in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith who are super athletes for their position. You're looking at Kingsley Suamataia, who would probably be a elite player or an elite scorer at offensive guard as well. This is why I think that this move is going to work out for Kingsley, assuming that he is able to. It seems that he maybe lost some intensity, lost some of the spirit to fight, whatever it was last year, Once he was taken off the field, he never got back on the field. So, not sure what is going on there. Never got back on the field despite the fact that the Chiefs struggled at left tackle all the livelong season. Then you have Jawaan Taylor, who did not do any of his testing, so he doesn't have an RAS score. Probably the money was too big to lose for Jawaan Taylor. Now, I'm not saying that because I think he would have done poorly at any of these tests, but you see players who have elite testing numbers get pushed up the draft board. If you simply do not do the testing, it's harder to push you down the draft board because teams are going to be judging you solely based on what they have on film. And the testing that he does have, or the numbers, I guess I should say, that he does have, are pretty good. 10-inch hand size is what you want. 35 and 1/8 inch arms. That is an elite arm length. Then you have a 6'5" height, which is a good height for offensive tackle. It's not elite or anything, but definitely functional. There's plenty of starting and plus starters in the NFL at 6'5" at the tackle position. 312 pounds. He's a little bit light. 24 reps on the bench press. But you see that he was probably not going to be a super athlete, or he would have done this testing. Jawaan Taylor has been one of the weaker parts of this offensive line, and not just because of the pre-snap proclivities of Jawaan Taylor. Not just because he gets flagged. He's a liability a little bit in the running game, and he did give up 7 sacks last season. So this is an exact opposite of that. I think had Josh Simmons done his testing, had he been cleared to do that testing, probably wasn't cleared to do that testing, I should not assume that, but had he done that testing, I think he probably would have been a super athlete at the offensive tackle position. You see there with the one testing number that he did do, the bench press, he put up 34 reps, which is a score of 9.83. That is an elite number, and it doesn't get much higher than that. And you see that with his build, right? You can tell that Josh Simmons puts in the time in the weight room. He almost looks like Mike Pennell if Mike Pennell lost his belly. He is an imposing player on the field, despite the fact that he is sub 6'5". Then we have on that list Jalen Moore, who scores a 7.49. Jalen Moore probably had to do the testing because he was not in position to be one of the guys who could stand to be pushed down the draft board. But he did what he acquitted himself just fine in these tests. 11-inch hands, probably tied for the biggest on the team. 33 and 3/8 inch arms. Those are good numbers. The arm length is a right around passing. Then you have a 6'4" and 1/10 inch height, which scores just a 1.41. 311 pounds is not a huge weight for offensive tackle, not a huge weight for offensive guard, and 27 reps on the bench press, which scores at tackle 8.31. I say at tackle because we are seeing him work in at guard for the Chiefs as well. 30.5-inch vert, 8-foot 10-inch broad jump, 5.25 40-yard dash, 1.82 10-yard split, 4.63 short shuttle, and a 7.77 three-cone drill. These are all fine numbers, and probably got him a few more looks in the draft, right? Then we move down on that list that was given to us earlier of the top 8 on the team. Hunter Nourzad didn't do any testing either, relied on his game tape from college and had the measurables to do that. 10 and 3/4 inch hands, 33 and 1/8 inch arms. This is what you're looking at offensive center / guard. For center, he's a really good prototype size type guy. 6'3", 317 pounds, 27 reps on the bench press. Again, probably not going to be a super athlete, so why do the testing? And then we have Mike Caliendo, where it falls all the way down to 6.84. Mike Caliendo, I believe, did play offensive tackle at Western Michigan. So I think he played center, guard, and tackle for Western Michigan. but only 6'4", 301 pounds, 28.5-inch vert, 8'4" broad jump, 5.36 40-yard dash with a 1.79 10-yard split, 4.72 short shuttle, and 7.68 three-cone drill. Pardon me. That is those top 8 players that were listed there. It's not uncommon to carry 9 offensive linemen, so you would think there would be one more guy on this list to make the team. And if you can get away with keeping 10 because you have the numbers to do so, I think you would do so. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to do that this year. That is what they did last season. Last year on this list, you had Wanya Morris, C.J. Hansen, and Ethan Driscoll were part of the 53-man roster. Obviously, you had Joe Thuney in there as well. But I think it is more likely that they keep 9 this season than 10. So at this point, you're looking at a real crunch, and the coaching staff does seem high on Ethan Driscoll. I don't know if Ethan Driscoll makes it to your practice squad. I'm very high on C.J. Hansen. I don't know if C.J. Hansen makes it to your practice squad. C.J. Hansen had an elite score on the RAS. He's someone that does move very well. He is someone that I think has upside at offensive tackle. I have to assume at this point that I am wrong. And then Wanya Morris, it's difficult to imagine the Chiefs parting ways with Wanya Morris. Wanya Morris has upside at tackle and guard. At this point on the roster, what you're looking for, I think, is a whole lot of versatility. You know, if you put Wanya Morris out there at tackle, he's not going to get destroyed all the time. He got destroyed some last year, but not all the time. The Chiefs trusted him on the field, and that says a lot. I don't think you can get away with Mike Caliendo at offensive tackle. So are they really trying to min-max with the offensive line? Are they trying to maximize for versatility? What are they really looking at for their offensive line group? That, I think, is what we will start to see once the preseason games start and who works in at that rotation. Because you still want the offense to be able to move. You still want the offense to be able to protect the quarterback because you're trying to get your lower-level running backs and wide receivers looks as well. So I don't think they're going to just blow off the third and fourth quarters of these preseason games with guys that maybe he'll make the roster, maybe he won't. Not at the offensive line positions. I think they're still going to be putting in work and trying to figure out who it is that's going to make this roster. Then we have some notes on the wide receivers, but just a couple. Nick Jacobs says Mahomes to Remigio on the intermediate crosser and Mahomes with another deep crosser to Tyquan Thornton. In my opinion, both of these guys are on the roster at this point. So what you're looking at is Rice, Worthy, Hollywood, Royals, Remigio, and Thornton. Will they keep 7? Last year, they kept 7 wide receivers, 10 offensive linemen. They cut it short with running backs. They kept their 4 tight ends. So the numbers crunch on the offensive side of the ball really is incredible this season. I think you're going to see a finely tuned team taken into that opening week. The sort of outlier here is obviously the Rashee Rice suspension, which you have to believe we're going to hear about it any day now. You have to believe that if they're going to suspend Rashee Rice, the news probably needs to come down fairly quickly. But you have here the makings of a team that is very hard to crack the 53. And in previous years, that hasn't always been the case. There have been a couple guys that were sort of questionable NFL guys. And if you're looking at that wide receiver core there, that's 6 guys there. Those are all NFL guys. You have in Rice, Worthy, Hollywood, and Royals, 4 guys that I think are legitimate number 2 wide receivers in the NFL. Rashee Rice might be making his way to a legitimate number 1. And in Remigio, you have not just a return guy, but a guy that I think can be a scrappy, keep the chains moving kind of guy. And Tyquan Thornton is, if I'm going to throw around the term super athlete, Tyquan Thornton is a super athlete that has elite speed and it was hard for him. He washed out in New England Part of that is because of the draft pick that was invested in him. I think the same is true in Kansas City for Sky Moore. Sky Moore does have a pair of, well, a 250-yard and a 249-yard season under his belt. If that were a 7th-round pick, that's good productivity. That would be a win for a 7th-round pick. He was a 2nd-rounder, so it does not look anywhere near as impressive. So I got a comment, I think it was 2 days ago. I'm blanking on who left it, so I apologize, that he was hanging around sort of the New England message boards, and the knock on Tyquan Thornton was not that he couldn't get open. Or maybe it was yesterday because of I had highlighted Tyquan Thornton yesterday, so I apologize for not remembering who had left this comment. But the comment was that Tyquan Thornton can get open. That has never been the question with him. It's whether or not he will catch the ball. We saw that with Kadarius Toney. But we saw that with Kadarius Toney when he was counted on to be the number 2 and number 3 wide receiver in this offense during an injury-plagued and otherwise lackluster season from the wide receivers. So the Tyquan Thornton rub is that he can't catch the ball, but he's never had Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. He has had quarterbacks. So I think, if memory serves me, and I should have looked into this before I hit record, a litany of quarterbacks throwing him passes. It's difficult to adjust to the quarterbacks. It's difficult because some of the quarterbacks aren't going to be up to par, if you remember what was going on in New England the past few seasons. And you have no one in the league is Patrick Mahomes. So that is, I think, something that can be dispelled this one season with Tyquan Thornton on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't remember any buzz around Tyquan Thornton prior to this. So is what it is. I think that the Chiefs are set at both wide receiver and offensive line. I think that they have the athletes to get through the season. The very bottom of this roster is where we are looking at. Will they heap a 7th wide receiver? Who will be the 9th and possibly 10th offensive lineman? It's going to be interesting, probably right up through that second preseason game. That is all I have with this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about. Having dropped at least one video every day for over 2.5 years now. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.